Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our latest Ask the Leaders Facebook Live Q&A. I'm Darryl Smalley, and I'm the Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities at City of York Council. Some of you will know already that the Council has held a number of these Facebook Live sessions now, covering a wide range of topics from the latest public health advice to the reopening of the city. Today, we are again joined by representatives from the public health and business sectors to discuss the news announced by the government over the weekend. And what the national lockdown restrictions will mean for residents and businesses in York. Tonight we'll be taking a closer look at the guidance available, the latest data, the support that's available, and the city's ongoing coronavirus response. This year has been exceptionally difficult for everyone, and we are grateful to residents and businesses across the city that have gone to great lengths to adapt to the new guidance and protect our city. However, we must adapt again, and now must go further to protect each other. I know that a lot has been asked of everyone in the city, and we're extremely grateful for your hard work. As a council, we're keen to support you as best we can, and so please don't hesitate to get in touch if you need a helping hand. Our community hubs are still running, and anyone needing support can contact our COVID-19 helpline on York 551 550 or email at covid19help@york.gov.uk, where our incredible volunteers and staff will be able to help you, whether you need assistance from collecting shopping or simply need advice on what the restrictions will mean for you. It's clear that the next few weeks will be a major challenge for businesses across the city. We are pressing the government for full details on the funding and grants available to local businesses. Just as we did earlier in the year, we will work to set these schemes up swiftly and get the money out of the door as quickly as we can. Tonight, we will do our best to answer your questions, but as has been often the case with this pandemic, there are currently more questions than answers, especially over what will happen over the next month for our city and country. We are still waiting official guidance and clearer guidelines and support arrangements that will be passed on by us and other local authorities. So whilst we will do our best to provide you with answers, more information will follow over the next few days as the debates and votes in the House of Commons will ultimately provide clarity on what the restrictions will mean for us. We will be sharing those restrictions with residents and businesses as soon as it's available, as well as all the guidance. So please do keep an eye out on the council website and social media channels. So although the coming weeks will not be easy, despite the challenges of this year, York has demonstrated what it does best, residents coming together and supporting each other. It's crucial that we continue in this spirit and work together over the coming weeks and months. So let's continue to support one another, shop local, and then most importantly, stay safe. I'll stop there and ask the panel to introduce themselves. I know Zoom always looks different for everyone's screen, so in no particular order, Neil, would you like to go first?
So Neil Ferris, the Corporate Director for Economy and Place, work for the City of York Council.
Thank you very much. And Carolyn?
Carolyn Frank, I'm the Development Manager for the Federation of Small Businesses for York and North Yorkshire.
Thanks very much. Andrew?
Councillor Andrew Waller, I'm Executive Member for Economy and Strategic Planning.
Thanks, Andrew. And Sharon?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon Stoltz, and I'm the Director of Public Health for York.
Thanks very much. And for those that haven't watched one of the Facebook Live Q&As before, we have a number of questions that have been submitted by residents in advance. I'd like to thank all those that got in touch beforehand. We will begin by answering those questions, but please don't forget that you can ask questions in the comment section. And ourselves, who I think we all probably have phones out looking at what you're saying, and the comms officers in the background will provide us with what you're saying. We'll hopefully answer as many questions as possible. First, though, before we get to the questions, I'll just hand over to Sharon to give us a quick update on the situation in York.
Okay, thank you, Darryl. So in terms of overview, obviously, people watching this broadcast will be aware that a couple of weeks ago, York went into Tier 2, and that's high tier, because of the significant spike that we'd seen in cases of COVID at that time. and also the fact that we had a very high positivity rate. So our 7-day rolling average of the proportion of tests that were coming back as positive was very high at around 18%. And so we went into tier 2 restrictions at that point, and that's what residents and businesses have been living with now in York for about 2-3 weeks. I'm pleased to say that all of those efforts, the additional efforts that the city has been taking through tier 2 appear to be working. The latest data shows that the number of positive cases of COVID in York is coming down. It's coming down across all age groups, which is really positive. The proportion of tests coming back as positive, so that positivity rate is also reduced. It's now just under 12%, so that's fallen quite significantly in the last few weeks. And we're also managing to keep local outbreaks in care homes and schools, etc., well under control. So overall, the picture is more positive than it was a few weeks ago. Just to caveat that, though, is that we're seeing an increase in COVID-related patients in York Hospital, and GP practices are still very busy as well. So it's a positive picture, but what I would like to say to everyone watching is it's a positive picture because of all of the work that we've done together as a city. And we need to continue all of that hard work over the next 4 weeks, that hands, face-to-face message, getting tested if you have symptoms, and then the all-important self-isolation if you test positive, or if you're informed you're a contact of a positive case. That continues to be really, really important. And if we work hard together as a city over the next 4 weeks of lockdown, my aspiration is that we, as in York, are able to go back to tier 1, and that we will have brought our figures down so successfully that we won't go back into tier 2, we'll go back into tier 1, which will mean that life will be a lot easier for our businesses and residents as well. Obviously, tier 1 still has some restrictions, but they're less onerous than tier 2. And if we work together as a city, I'm sure that we can achieve that. So we just need to carry on with doing what we're doing. It is working. We just need to keep up our efforts over the next 4 weeks.
Thanks very much, Sharon. I'll just pick up a quick point I think Christine has made on Facebook, on the comments in Facebook, in terms of how we're communicating with residents, and especially those that aren't on Facebook and aren't watching this. Obviously the council will do everything possible to push both our help messages in terms of where you can go to access support if you need it, but also the general guidance and the nice things, where you can enjoy things online, and where you can still engage in what the libraries are offering and what museums are offering. And we'll continue to send that out. So if you keep an eye out for the Our City publication that will come fairly soon, we'll also be sending out letters, radio advertising, and more local media, and that's press advertising, to make sure that where possible this message is getting out, and those that need help will know exactly where to go. With that, I think we've had a couple of questions already. In fact, just going to a couple of live ones before we go on to the pre-submitted ones. Marky has asked, can businesses open on the 2nd or 3rd of December? Carolyn, would you mind picking that one up?
Yeah, so we hope that the 3rd of December will be reopening. There's some speculation around that date still from government, but definitely the 3rd of December is what is being said at the moment. So then you'll remain, as Sharon said, back to a tier system and a regional approach after that. So the national lockdown, those businesses should be able to open. I think the important thing is to remember that even though the businesses are closed from this Thursday until the 3rd of December is that they can still be supported. So the businesses, whilst they aren't physically open, they're still trading. So there's going to be click and collect, which is allowed, takeaway, you know, pick up the phone and speak to your local independent shops. You've got lots of them in York. York's a city of independent businesses. So please support those businesses. Don't just wait for the 3rd of December.
Thanks very much, Carolyn. Andrew.
Yes, I think that's a very important message that many people during the first lockdown did ensure that they supported their local businesses to keep them going, and therefore there'll be a lot of effort being made into making sure that people are aware how the click and collect works, how they can keep buying stuff, particularly in the run up to Christmas, which we appreciate is a large factor in many shops in making that money that keeps them going for the rest of the year. So we do want people to make sure that they're buying local for their Christmas shopping.
Thanks very much, Andrew. And this won't be the first question, I'm sure, on business support. On to one of the questions we asked that were asked in advance. It's a question from Margaret. Margaret asks, as both my husband and I have had COVID-19, can you tell me how long immunity lasts and if we are likely to catch it again? Luckily for us, it was a mild strain. We did follow the isolation guidelines. And then another point Margaret wants to make is, can York reiterate the 2-metre rule to residents, as people, particularly in shops, don't seem to be obeying this rule? I think go first to Sharon, if that's okay on those two.
Yes. Thank you, Darryl, and thank you, Margaret, for the question. Unfortunately, we don't really know how long immunity lasts after somebody has had COVID. There are studies being done around that at the moment, and a lot of research that's going on to understand that better. There are varying studies showing how long immunity might last for. The most recent one I read suggested that at best, immunity might last some months. It certainly doesn't seem to be a lifetime immunity. And we're also aware now of documented cases where somebody has unfortunately got COVID twice. So our advice would always be, or my advice to people is, even if you know you've had COVID and you've had a positive test for COVID, you can't relax and think that you're now immune. It's really important that you continue with those hands, face, space messages. And if you develop symptoms of COVID, that you get tested and self-isolate, just as you did the first time that you've got COVID. And it will continue to be that way until we have stronger evidence really around immunity. So I'm very pleased that you and your husband didn't suffer too greatly when you had COVID the first time, but yes, unfortunately, you still need to keep up with all of the safety measures. In terms of 2-metre distancing, I think that's a really good point. I feel that the council, together with our partners, are doing everything we can to try and encourage people that 2-metre distancing is best. Obviously, there is some confusion around the 1 metre plus rule and whether it's safe to actually be closer than 2 metres. My advice would always be that indoors, it is far better to try and stick to 2 metre distancing. If that isn't possible, then wearing face coverings are absolutely vital, and actually trying to limit the amount of time that you might be speaking with someone face to face, because even a face covering won't give 100% protection. And it's one of the reasons why we're encouraging people to meet outside as far as possible, or in very well ventilated indoor spaces. So it's that exchange of air that's really important. So if you're meeting indoors, ensuring that windows are open, that the space is well ventilated, but wherever you can, meet outside in a public space, so that any virus that is around can be dissipated into the fresh air. That's always best if you can do that.
Thank you ever so much, Sharon. On to our next question, which unfortunately, I mean, we've got used to this pattern, I think, Sharon, of you being the go-to person for a lot of these health-related questions. We've had a question from another Sharon on care homes. And Sharon asks, how can you justify stopping people who've been able to visit loved ones in care homes yet again? It's so bad for people's mental health, both for residents and relatives. The simple solution all this time has been one relative per resident, a test, and when the home is clear, let them visit. I know it's obviously an incredibly difficult subject, and we've seen across the country how this has been handled well and then badly. I don't know, Sharon, did you want to pick up on what the current situation is?
Yes, yeah. So there are differences in terms of care home visiting depending on which part of the country you live in. So in areas in Tier 3, for example, there have been many more restrictions around care home visiting. In York, even when we went into Tier 2, I've taken the view that we should not have a blanket block on care home visiting, for the reasons that Sharon, you've set out in your question. The importance of interaction with family members is so important for the physical and mental health of care home residents, but also the mental health of their family as well, and having that continued contact is so important. So in York, what we've taken is what we call a risk assessment approach, where we've worked with and encouraged care homes to do a risk assessment and look at how relatives can continue to visit care home family members in a COVID safe way. And care homes dependent on their particular circumstances. I've worked hard in most cases to enable that to happen. We are awaiting for the regulations to be published, the lockdown regulations that we're expecting to be published hopefully on Thursday this week, to find out what it says about care homes. But unless the regulations state that care home visiting is unlawful, in York we'll be continuing to work hard with care homes to encourage them to find ways that visiting can still take place. In terms of testing, I'm aware that there are some pilots going on across the country in terms of rapid care testing, where somebody can be tested and they have a result in a short period of time, sometimes in less than an hour. At the moment, those tests are not available to us in York. They are being piloted, as I've said, in some other areas, and I'm sure they will be rolled out across the whole country and to York at some point. And so when they're available to us locally, certainly that's one of the areas that we'll be interested to work with care homes on.
Thank you ever so much, Sharon, for that question, for that answer rather. We've had a question on Facebook from Heather, and Heather asks, if people are exempt from wearing face masks and not wearing a lanyard to say so, why are they not encouraged to wear a shield? And then I think just if we grab a few whilst you're answering that one, Jane has asked, has the local track and trace system started, and if so, has it been effective? So I know you have a bit to say on that.
Did you want me to pick up that
Yes,
one?
please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sorry, my internet connection is phasing in and out,
Sorry.
so I'm not necessarily picking up the sound too well. I mean, first of all, it's absolutely right that there are some people that are exempt under the legislation from wearing face masks, and you can't necessarily tell when someone's walking around whether they're exempt or not. So one of the reasons we've been encouraging people to carry little cards saying they're exempt is it really helps if they're stopped by a shop or they're stopped by, you know, the police or a bid ranger or anybody really who challenges them as to why they're not wearing a mask. Rather than get into a big debate about that, they can just pull out the card that says they're exempt, which is one of the advantages of using of carrying one of those. In terms of whether people should use face shields, I think that's an individual choice. It depends on the reason someone is exempted from wearing a face mask as to whether a face shield would be acceptable to them. And certainly as a public health team, we've dealt with a number of inquiries from residents who have been asking just that question. You know, can they wear a face shield? And are face shields as effective as masks? Face shields help. They are not as effective as a well-fitting face covering, but they provide some protection. But the reason they're not enforceable in law is because of those exemption criteria that I mentioned before. And we really do need to take that into account when we see people walking around the city looking apparently healthy, but they're not wearing a face covering. We need to just be mindful of not jumping to conclusions around why they're not wearing a face covering. And you know, learn to live together. So COVID is going to be with us for a while yet. So it's important that as a city, we all, you know, learn to give and take. We support each other. We're respectful of each other and understand that everybody's circumstances are different as far as that's concerned.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Sharon. Just super quickly, if you could, before we go on to a question in terms of businesses, Jane has asked, has local track and trace started, and if so, has it been successful? I know there's a lot of positive news about this, but if we could...
Yeah, so in brief, yes, our local contact tracing service started last Thursday, prior to last week, and it is successful. We're currently seeing over 83% of people that are referred to us by the national test and trace system. So I'm really pleased. It's going very well.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, and great to hear, and good news for the city. We've one question, one quite broad question, perhaps for you, Carolyn, but I imagine also for Neil and Andrew, and that's how are businesses preparing to ensure that the holiday shopping time will be safe for both retailers and shoppers? And I know obviously retailers were expecting quite a long period to have as a sort of Christmas shopping, and obviously it will now be condensed. So over to you.
I mean, I think we've seen businesses put in place lots and lots of measures so that customers can have confidence to visit them while they've been open. And again, now with the lockdown restrictions, they'll still be able to trade, as we've said earlier. So there will be lots of ways that people can do that click and collect sort of service safely, because the measures are there: sanitizer, distancing, clear signage. All businesses will have completed a risk assessment. If there are businesses asking and you're unsure about what you need to do to make your customers feel safe, do ask The council teams are there, trading standards are there. Ask ourselves at the FSB, ask the local enterprise partnership, ask Make It York. I really encourage businesses to look for support to do this and say to customers, you know, businesses have got this covered. We've seen some really great examples of how they've gone out of their way to keep customers safe.
Thank you very so much, Carolyn. Neil and then Andrew.
I just reiterate what Carolyn said, but just to reassure the callers out there, from an independent regulator perspective, our teams include Trading Standards, Environmental Health, and they've been visiting these premises. And as Carolyn said, we've had a fantastic response, really good risk assessments in place. They've spent money on screens, they've spent money providing hand sanitizer for their customers. And we see some really good practices here in York. And I think that that's gone a long way to effectively reflecting the figures that that Sharon talked about at the start of the meeting. You know, when York has moved up those tiers and restrictions, our businesses have responded.
Thank you very so much. Andrew.
Yes, just to concur with the previous speakers, that a huge amount of investment has been made by businesses in the city to making them their businesses, their locations COVID safe, so that when they are able to reopen, they'll be in a position to ensure that what's left of the run up to Christmas can be utilised. Obviously, we don't know how the national picture will pan out in terms of is it definitely going to be the 3rd of December when things can start, but I think we need to prepare for that, because I think people will want to have that bit of sparkle before Christmas, and I think that there's been a huge amount of effort on the Be York campaign to make people aware that you know, there's people around them. I've been out with the Trading Standards and Environmental Health teams to see firsthand on a Saturday night what steps have been put in place. So I think a huge range of different businesses had really pulled together, and it's unfortunate the national situation's changed this way.
Thank you, Andrew, and completely agree, especially on that especially important for your winter shopping period. I know my mum won't thank me if I don't manage to get hold of some York gin in time for Christmas. In terms of questions we've just had on Facebook, Leanne has asked, or said rather, disabled shoppers are still excluded from getting into the city to shop at a time when we need to support local businesses. Now, I know this is something that has changed, I guess, in terms of reacting to COVID-19. Neil, would you be able to just give a bit of an update in terms of what measures are in place?
Obviously, in terms of the lockdown that starts on Thursday, the authorities reviewing the nature of the restrictions that are in place, because obviously the restrictions that were put in place as an emergency over the summer were to facilitate those pavement cafes, which obviously will not be operating through November. And obviously what Carolyn's also talked about is click and collect and takeaway deliveries will start to become more prevalent in part of the business model. So we're looking at how we might adapt to the emergency decisions we've made so that they're fit for purpose for this lockdown period. Equally as well for the longer term, because as the caller will know, there is been a consultation being undertaken with the Blue Badge community, and members are going to consider on the 26th of November executive that longer term measures in terms of a longer term COVID response, but also the longer term future for the city's foot streets approach. And both of those meetings will take into account the views of the Blue Badge holders that have been consulted over the last 6 weeks.
Thank you ever so much, Neil. We've had a question from John that's related to when does the council rather have plans to get the city back open, welcome tourists back, and give businesses some positivity. And also, I think there was a question, although I can't quite get it, in terms of, do you in particular, Sharon, see there being a time for those sort of mass events that, you know, whether it's events on the Knavesmire or you know, those gatherings on Parliament Street, I guess when you see that might come back. I know that's a sort of, you can get your globe out, but no, I think first to probably Neil, if that's okay.
I think the number one plan for businesses are reopening is exactly the point that Sharon and Karen made. We need to effectively make the best we possibly can of this lockdown and get York into the lowest possible tier when we come back out. So if we can come back out with low figures into tier 1, that'll be the best possible result for our businesses. So to all the viewers out there, it's about making sure we comply with the rules over the next 4 weeks and that we get that figure down low for York. But then obviously having got that figure down low, what we're looking at is making sure that local residents have the confidence to come back and use our local great businesses. And we'll be looking with businesses over the next 3 weeks. We're not going to sit around in this time. We'll work with businesses, with Caroline and colleagues to say, how do we make sure that local residents have the confidence to come back? And that, like I say, that low score as we come out of here is what we're aiming for.
Thank you ever so much. Might pop to Andrew in a bit, but just to a quick point rather. I know there's been a few questions, especially about schools and reopening of schools. Given the announcement at the weekend, we will absolutely be having more of these live Q&As. And I know that the one previous to this was all about education, in particular universities. And I'm sure in the coming days and weeks, more live Q&As will be scheduled. Particular as education once again is coming back into the fore. So I think do just keep an eye out for the council social media channels and press releases in terms of when that next one will be scheduled. Just a question, I guess, well, it was to Sharon really in terms of mass events. I know, obviously, I think you look back at my calendar of the year and all the events that didn't happen that I'd have loved to have attended and had booked and had registered for. And I know it's very difficult and there's lots of contradictory advice out there, but I guess just your perspective on York being an obviously city famous for events.
So it all depends on well, a couple of things really. The first one is looking at the prevalence of COVID in our population. So looking at whether we've got sustained community transmission. And the World Health Organization recommends that the positivity rate should be below 5%. And we're just under 12% at the moment. So obviously there's quite a way to go. So the risk of community transmission in any mass event is obviously a concern if we've got evidence that COVID is spreading quite freely within the community, which it is at the moment. But then we also look at whether an event can be held in a COVID safe way. So if we're going to bring large numbers of people together, can we do that in a way that is safe for them and minimises the risk of infection? Whether that's ticketed only events or however that might be managed. But then we also talk to our multi-agency partners. So we have a safety advisory group within the council that is looks at all mass events. And that includes the ambulance service, it includes the police as well on that, as well as health and safety experts. And so it's really the advice from that multidisciplinary and multi-agency safety advisory group that the council looks to when making a decision as to whether we say it's okay for mass events to happen. So absolutely, I'm with everyone else here. You know, we want life to get back to normal. We want to be able to go back to festivals and mass events, and we will get there. We absolutely will get there. But I don't think we're going to be there until probably next summer at the earliest, and let's review where we are at that point. But we won't be holding mass events unless we believe that it's safe for residents to do so. But at the same time, we wouldn't block events going ahead if we were confident that they could be done safely. So it's getting that balance.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Sorry, Sharon, rather. That was quite a large section all about business, sport and events. I don't know, Andrew, did you have any comments on that bit?
On supporting events, I think that clearly we've got to follow signs on that. I noticed some questions have come in about supporting businesses, and I think that's where it's very much a team effort. We've seen decisions made by multinationals and billionaires outside of the country, which has impacted upon many of the chains that have been in the city. And therefore, as Carolyn pointed out, the strength of York is in the independence. And therefore, the council will be working with the FSB, with the chamber, with the bid to support those businesses. And the tier 2 funding, which was announced, it'll be 2 weeks next Thursday. We're making sure that that will be allocated to businesses, and that whenever the government does issue the guidelines, clearly there's going to be debate in the House of Commons as to the details, but it's really about connecting with residents. The latest information that was provided over the summer was that a much greater proportion of people shopping in the city came from a local base. And I think that's a connection. As Carolyn mentioned, there are ways in which you can support your local shops through click and collect, but also, it's been noted that many small businesses have really picked up trade, and therefore it's important that that continues.
Thank you ever so much, Andrew. We've had a question from Lynette asking if Roundtrees Park and Museum Gardens are going to be open for exercising. I think just on those points, so Roundtree Park is currently closed, or will be closing this evening because of the high river levels we've seen. So that is why the gates are locked. If you try to get in there tonight, tomorrow, and potentially in the coming days, whilst we have high river levels. And Museum Gardens is quite a particular case. The government have given quite blunt instructions to those running botanical gardens. And very, very technically, the Museum Gardens is a botanical garden. Obviously, it has some fantastic some plants and has some great specimens in there, which is why it's rightly registered so. And I know York Museum Trust, who run and manage Museum Gardens on behalf of the city, are working with the Department for Culture, Media and Sports to actually work out how they can potentially keep Museum Gardens open, as aware it's such an important open space for the city. In your second part of the question, Lynette, that was about whether you can leave York for exercising and walking, in particular, for example, the moors, and whether that's allowed under the guidance. I'm afraid I'll just pop to Sharon for that, but I know everyone's taking a sharp intake of breath.
It's so what we know about the guidance already around this lockdown is people are going to be discouraged from traveling out of their local areas. So certainly people are encouraged to exercise, to go out and walk in the fresh air. That's absolutely vitally important, but to do it close to home. And so I'm sure that when the regulations come out, it may contain some stronger wording around that, around what enforcement the police will be able to do. But certainly it is strongly discouraged, and that's one of the reasons for the 4-week lockdown. Is to try and restrict movement of people, encourage people to stay as close to home, as a way of helping us keep this spread of the virus under control. So no, getting in your car and going to the moors or to the beaches for exercise is something that I would strongly discourage. It's about staying as close to home as you can.
Thank you very much, Sharon. And I know that we've been very difficult. I know we've got some fantastic places on our doorstep. And I would say, going back to the parks question, I think what potentially, just because my particular patch is sandwiched between Clifton and Rawcliffe Ings and Clifton Backies, I think even if the guidance changes or is strengthened in terms of parks closing, we've got some fantastic open spaces in terms of the Strays, the Naysmire, some fantastic open spaces in York, and I think rediscovering somewhere you've not been, or walking to a new patch of York. I think a lot of people in the first lockdown really enjoyed doing that. I think we've had a question in terms of probably a question to Carolyn In terms of the advice available to businesses who are not sure about the details of government guidance, and then I'll follow it up with another question we've had on a similar subject later.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of questions in the chat, and one pre-submitted one specifically about cleaning business, dog grooming businesses and so on. We're still awaiting full government guidance and the real detail behind these announcements. And I would just encourage businesses to sign up for the council newsletters, make it York's regular contribution as well. And that detail will come out. We share regularly the government guidance as soon as it comes out. If you look on our Facebook page at FSB North Yorkshire, we share all those updates as they become available, as the council do. So, you know, to businesses, don't worry too much about the detail until it is published. As soon as we have that detail, it will be out there, but you need to go and look for it maybe in those sources. There was a question as well on funded support and etc. and grants, and again the details are still coming out, but there are lots of different ways to fund and support your business, not just the national government schemes. City of York have put several schemes in place. There's some part funded schemes available from the local enterprise partnership, so I would encourage all businesses to look around at what's available and just get signed up for those newsletters. It's all there. And the details, let us worry about the details and getting them out to you rather than you going looking individually as businesses.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. And just on an extension to that point, really, a question on whether the continuation of the furlough scheme is enough to provide support that our city's businesses will need during lockdown. I guess, would you like to pick that up, and then I'll probably go also to Andrew?
So yes, the furlough scheme, instead of finishing at the end of the month, has now been extended, which has been welcomed by businesses, because hopefully saving you know, jobs while this lockdown period goes along. And then there is also the job support scheme, which was coming online, which I assume will come back after this newly extended period of furlough. Those schemes are designed to save jobs, to save staff from having to be laid off and so on. Whether that's enough, we're still lobbying government. We've had a public affairs call this afternoon. I know our guys have been working all weekend on that with government, looking at what other areas of support can come out to businesses, including financial support, including training, things like that, all different things so that businesses can adapt. We've seen some amazing innovation in York and all these adaptations that businesses have done. You know, businesses are really trying to help themselves, and we're asking government to do the same and put funding there so that even if it's, you know, via the council or direct to businesses from national government, just getting more help out there so that we can just help these businesses along. And as Sharon has said many times in these Facebook Lives, and I heard on the radio the other day as well, this will end at some point, and it's just a matter of getting businesses through that so that they can continue on their business pathway. And I think we have to think about that and think about future-proofing York's businesses as well, because when the pandemic ends, we want to be on the front foot as a city and the businesses in the city to move forward.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Andrew.
Thanks. And I noticed there's been another question on the Tier 2 funding, and that hasn't yet arrived. So if you're a business or a resident, you can sign up for regular updates. If you go on the council website, and you can click at the very beginning for that regular bulletin that comes out weekly, and that really does summarize all of the information that we have. We do try and remind people that if there's been an announcement by government that hasn't been followed up yet by guidance, we can't then give that guidance until it's been published, because we do want people to have accurate information. But I think in terms of making sure that your companies get the benefit of the support to draw in particularly young people, but also enable those who have regrettably lost their job to retrain. We're doing everything we can to make sure that the available funding is connected to the people or to the businesses that can be put to maximum use, so that people can get ready for when we're in recovery phase. And we recognise that there are businesses that have entirely missed out in grants so far. There are many self-employed people who have missed out previously and are seeing that they're missing out this time, and therefore, whilst there will be some discretionary funding, we understand, we don't know the details of it, we will need to apportion that fairly across the calls in the city, and therefore we're urging people to contact the council via economic growth at york.gov.uk, so that we have a full picture of what calls there will be on that limited funding.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and I agree entirely. I think businesses big and small, much loved brands and venues in York have all been affected, and I think when you hear about the organisations that have applied for those bounce back loans or benefited from the other schemes, I think everyone in York is really just gripping through this and getting through the worst of it until we can enjoy better times. We've had quite a, I guess, a serious question from Marlene. Marlene says, I work in a well-known supermarket I've had 2 home tests done, of which I haven't had any results back, and at my work doesn't have their own tests. What should I do? It's probably a question for Sharon, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hi, Marlene. I'm sorry you haven't had your results back. We know that there is still an issue with timely turnaround of test results for some people with the national test and trace scheme. What I would suggest is that if you had a test done, presumably because you have symptoms, that you self-isolate for 10 days, which you need to do if you've had symptoms, even if you haven't had your test result back. We would assume that you were positive if you have symptoms. So self-isolate for 10 days, irrespective of whether you get your test results. And after that self-isolation period, you should be able to return to work. If you have then concerns about your employer not following COVID rules, etc., can I suggest that you contact the council at the inquiries email. So we've set up a public health inquiries email, which is inquiries.publichealth@york.uk. If you contact us, if you continue to be concerned about your health, or if you want to discuss with us any concerns about your employer, we can follow that up anonymously. So please do contact us with any concerns, and we can do what we can to help you.
Thanks, Sharon. And I know our comms officers will pop that email in the chat below, and I believe it's inquiries.publichealth@york.gov.uk is the email address to get in touch with the public health team. In terms of just picking off some of the questions, we've had a few questions in terms of what happens after this period, after the lockdown period, both in terms of what tier we'll be in, but also has the government given any reassurances to local councils about when the lockdown will end? Just probably a quick one for you to pick up there, Sharon, before we try and squeeze a few more in. I'm aware we're at 10 to 6.
Okay, sorry, Darryl, can you just repeat the question?
So it's just about, have we been given any reassurances in terms of when the lockdown will end?
No, because what will happen is that at the end of the 4 weeks, the government, with advice from SAGE, etc., will look at the prevalence of COVID in the community and spread of the virus in communities. But they'll also be looking at hospital activity. The key thing really is to protect the NHS and ensure that the NHS isn't overrun, together with the other winter ailments that the NHS deals with every every winter. And so we can't be certain that the lockdown will end in 4 weeks. Obviously, that's our hope, but the government haven't ruled out extending it if the NHS continues to be under pressure. So it's down to everybody, really, every single one of us, in following the guidelines, doing what we can as individuals and with our families to prevent the spread of the virus. That will protect the NHS, and we'll all be able to get out of lockdown as soon as possible. So the responsibility lies with each one of us to ensure that lockdown's lifted.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for that answer. And I know we're all counting the days until we're allowed back out. Just I guess another question in terms of taxis, and it's how will the restrictions affect delivery and taxi drivers coming to work in York from other areas? Now I know somebody had put you down, Neil, for answering that one. Do you want to go first, and then we could potentially go to Sharon after?
Absolutely. Throughout all the lockdowns we've had this year, legitimate deliveries have been able to continue, and activity undertaken by drivers out doing their business legitimately across the country, and that includes taxi drivers operating in York has been allowed, and that will be the case through this next lockdown. Obviously, it's more important that those services are available for the public who need to get to work, because obviously what we are starting to see is because of declining passenger numbers on bus services, that we anticipate that we reduced bus services as we go into the next month, because obviously those services become less financially viable. So the need for alternative forms of transport is going to be really important over the next month.
Thank you, Neil. And I know just like lots of people still, frontline workers have to commute to York to work in our NHS, work at our doctors' surgeries, support the council in a lot of what we're doing on the front line. And I know actually we thank everyone that doesn't live within our boundaries but comes to support our city. Don't know, that probably it does cover the question quite well. So thank you very much. We've had probably a comment from Sarah. Sarah says the focus must be on getting info out about small businesses, online offerings, delivery, click and collect, etc., guiding the public to their websites. The public want to support small businesses in York. I think probably go to Carolyn first on just quite the activity that's going into exactly that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we meet regularly, the council, the BID, the chambers, Institute of Directors, and with all our members together, that's something we're hearing really strongly. We're all doing our little bit, both together as a partnership and individually as organisations, to get those messages out there. And, I think we can't get that message across strongly enough, that these businesses do need support. And I know the residents of York really do support the city and its businesses already, but ever more so now during lockdown. And it's up to all of us to be vigilant and look out for those offers and what businesses are doing, I think. There's lots of good work going out in terms of individual businesses. So do look out for them in your neighbourhood and across the city, definitely. And really good to hear that people are supporting the businesses, especially the smaller ones.
Thanks so much, Carolyn. Andrew?
To back that up, I think that there are a number of businesses that have made a switch to, they've pivoted, as they say, to ensure that people can see what they're doing online. And I think there's been some really imaginative use to link in with the customer loyalty of many businesses, and but we do recognise that there are businesses like pubs that once again they are facing having to throw beer away, and that many businesses that had relied on people going out were suffering because they just didn't have the custom. So I think the priority is to get the rates down as low as possible so that we can reopen in tier 2. I think it would be a clear objective, and that we can all play our part in that.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Neil, did you want to come in?
It's just a related point. Obviously, businesses are doing a fantastic job in terms of attracting local residents, and obviously that's a key area as we head into Christmas, is that business around local residents being feeling safe to go back into the York local business. So reiterate that point that others have made. If I might, Darryl, just because it's just popping up on my email trail, is there's been some concerns expressed today, I understand, about the household waste recycling centres being very busy. People are thinking that they're going to close on Thursday. The current guidance that we've got is that they will stay open. So just to reassure everybody, and the reason I ring that up is because they are open for small businesses, and we kept them open for small businesses throughout the last lockdown. So small businesses and indeed our residents, just be reassured that those sites are staying open. So there's no need to rush to the tips and join the queue that I understand has been there today.
Thank you so much. And I can hear the cheers coming across York, so the tips will remain open. Thank you so much. We've only got 5 minutes left, and I know obviously there's been a lot of questions we've not been able to answer today, and we'll certainly do more of these live Q&As. I just wanted, with 5 minutes to go, I don't know, Sharon, did you have any sort of, I guess, last remarks? I know there's a lot of people sat watching at home that are understandably nervous about the next few weeks ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think that provided everyone takes common sense measures, really, to keep themselves and their families safe, and follow that hand, face, space, isolate rule, we'll get through this as a city. I'm absolutely confident of that. It is going to be difficult. And I would encourage people who are finding it difficult, who perhaps are experiencing mental health and well-being issues, to again access the support that's available. And all of those details are available on the council's website. But also people can contact York, CVS, etc. There is support available, so don't suffer on your own or in silence. There is help out there. You just need to reach out, and there will be support available for you, whether that's emotional support. We'll do our best to support people financially. Our community hubs are gearing up to provide more support. So just to, ask for help if you need it, and that's kind of probably the final message that I would want to share with people.
Thank you so much, Sharon. It's with an eye on time, and I'm going to start drawing everything to a close. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who asked a question today. It is really incredibly valuable for us to hear your views, and we'll continue to hold these Facebook Live Q&As on other important subjects into the near future. I know we've had quite a few questions on education and what's happening with the schools today. I know what we will do is definitely in the weeks ahead, if not days, have another one of these specifically about education, and make sure that those experts, that those heads and teachers that actually know what's going on the ground are here to answer the questions in terms of what's going on. I'd also like to thank our panelists for their time and insight this evening. So thank you to Neil, Sharon, Carolyn and Andrew for giving up a chunk of your evening. I think let's remember to keep our city and each other safe. As Sharon just said, we all have a key role in avoiding the need for further restrictions and slowing the spread of coronavirus, and remembering the hands, face and space message. For future Q&A sessions, the latest public health updates and more information on all the topics we've discussed today, please do follow the council's social media pages and online resources. Honestly, the website has so much information. You could spend a whole day trawling at the latest updates and what's going on. So please do find that. Finally, given what's happening elsewhere today, The ONS in last year estimated there's around 1,000 American citizens living in York. And I think just wanted to say, whatever the result, whether your guy wins or not, you're always welcome in York. And for those that are in America and maybe want to escape, you're also welcome in York. So do bear us in mind. So thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight, and I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.